Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Marathon Keyword Matchup Strategy Show presented by Prize Picks. I'm Dave Loughran at Loughy_D, LOUGHY_D on the Twitter. Joined by Matt Savoca at Draftaholic, as we do every single week. Only 10 games this week, Matt. So we get back-to-back 10-game slates. Lightens the load a little bit, makes it a little bit easier, but some really interesting spots as well this week. And I know you're fired up to talk about a few of them.
Oh, I sure am. And what do they call it? The golden birthday, when you have like your 20th birthday on the 20th of the month. That's what it's called, the golden birthday. This is the golden week, 10 matchups, week 10. I love it. We have some high totals here. One that sticks out to me, a lot to dig into. I'm sure the substances of choice are being dug into by the chat. Happy to see some familiar faces. let's get rolling, man.
Never heard of the golden birthday before.
You not heard that day? I don't know. Where I grew up, that's what it was called, I believe.
Huh. Mine has long passed.
After 31, most people.
Yeah, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty cool. But so you have everyone has one golden birthday, right?
Yeah, presumably. Yep.
Okay. What if? Yeah. Okay. All right. For some reason, I wrap my head into a pretzel trying to figure something out that's super simplistic. I was thinking about February.
It's like, what about 20? What about a leap year? Well, that's when it'll happen.
I'm like, what if you're born on the 31st of February?
Something else is up.
Yeah, that doesn't work. Anyway, 10 games to talk about. As always, very happy to have you guys with us. You know this as well as I do. If you're busy throughout the week, you got family life, you got a demanding occupation, you got other stuff going on. Who knows? Maybe you're doing some sketchy shit behind the scenes. And this is the only time that you have access to really dig deep into every single week where we got you covered. We break down comprehensively every single game here, all 10 of them for this slate. If you want the showdown for tonight, Matt Kajeski and I just hit on that. So you can find that right here. But stick around for this one first and then flip over to that one. But yeah, this is your one-stop shop for Week 10 NFL DFS content. Let's kick it off, man. Jacksonville. We're going highest total to lowest total to make it easier for you guys. Jacksonville at the Kansas City Chiefs. First of all, 50.5 point total here. Chiefs get it, or laying 9.5 at home. I think the Chiefs could rout Jacksonville in this game. Big emotional victory, right? For the Jags last week. Big comeback at home against the collapsing Derek Carr and company. The Kansas City Chiefs squeak a win out against Malik Willis's Tennessee Titans. Primetime football, needed overtime to do so. Not really strong performance. I think they could come in here and tear up the 27th ranked pass defense in football. How do you feel about this one?
This could definitely be a get right game for the Kansas City Chiefs, who, by the way, they actually looked okay in a lot of situations in that overtime win. That defensive line of Tennessee is no joke.
They're really big, bad fellas there. Yeah.
Changed that entire matchup. He dropped back like 80 times. We probably don't see Mahomes drop back as many times this week, but I kind of see it the same way. The Chiefs are expensive from a salary-based standpoint. You need about 35 to 40 points from Patrick Mahomes to feel really good about him in a tournament. Is it possible here? Absolutely. And adjusted fantasy points allowed to the quarterback position. The Jaguars are 20th best in the NFL. The running back position is a complete mess. So people are going to be gravitating towards these Kansas City stacks in the passing game here. And it's a bigger mess than ever with Kadarius Toney an addition, but not really mixing in a huge amount quite yet.
Also, the fact that Mecole Hardman might not play.
Right. Is an ab injury right now.
Yeah,
he's not practicing. Yeah.
So I think it's abdomen.
I shortened it to ab.
But wouldn't that be abdominals?
I don't know.
Do you know that? You know what I'm saying though, right? Like I don't. Like,
We've tangented crazy already twice. I have no idea what the difference. So the abdomen must be the reference to like the area of the body, but the abdominals are the muscles themselves.
I think it is abdominal soreness. So you've got that right. But what if it was abdomen soreness?
Like if he had oblique soreness, you could say he had abdomen soreness as well because his obliques are in the abdomen. Is that kind of what we're getting at?
The obliques are
I have no idea where he's hurting, by the way.
Aren't the obliques the side?
The side, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe. I don't know. Either way, he's questionable and didn't practice yesterday. Anyone out there that knows biology better than Matt and myself, maybe you can, or physical, what would you call it? What would it be? What's it called? Like the study of the human body?
Biology? I don't know.
Human biology.
Anatomy.
Thank you. See, I need you today, man. Anatomy. Thank you. Anatomy was the word. It took you a second. I knew you'd get there.
It did. I was ready to talk wide receivers and running backs, but anatomy. That's how we do it.
Hey, man. But no, this is a weird spot because you've got Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes both very expensive. And then you have everybody else that isn't. Like the running back attack approach or backfield for Kansas City is just not appealing to me at all. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is getting phased out. Pacheco, I don't trust, especially on a slate like this. Maybe one of them blows up, but it seems unlikely that they are optimal in a spot like this. So then you've got Juju mid-range, Hardman, who's just been a red zone goal line monster recently. They're trying to get him the ball there. And then, like you said, MVS, who the hell knows what's going on with his role right now? Big contract, completely uninvolved. Kadarius Toney, will Hardman play? And then flip it back to the other side. We can tackle this in one spot.
Sure.
Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Marvin Jones, Evan Ingram. None of these guys are expensive at all. And then, of course, the elephant in the room when it comes to how you want to approach this game, Travis Etienne, who's been playing fantastic football with huge volume ever since they traded James Robinson.
Of course. So let's hit the passing game first. This passing attack in Kansas City absolutely has a chance to go off, and it's kind of turned into a more predictable passing attack, at least over the last few weeks. Kelce, just an absolute monster. The best tight end in football, especially when Mark Andrews is injured. We're going to see just a 10% ownership because he's so expensive. Getting to a 7,800 Kelce means that you have to make salary concessions elsewhere in your lineup to the point where some people just aren't going to be able to do it. That makes him very intriguing to me. But you got to mention Juju Smith-Schuster, also seeing a similar ownership expectation. He's only 6K. He needs about 18 to 20 points for you to feel really good about him in a tournament. I'm fine with these two at their salaries. I think they absolutely have projections better than salary-based expectations, both of them. And then on the other side, I think there are decent run backs in Kirk, Jones, and Marvin Jones Jr. But honestly, I think one way to play this game, if you're thinking GPPs, large field GPPs, is to take that 30-point total of the Kansas City Chiefs and then look at the expected ownership of Pacheco, Edwards-Helaire, and McKinnon. No one's going to get more than 5% out of anyone in that group. And this team is still expected to score a ton of points. We've already brought up how this team should be able to get right offensively in this spot. I'm not saying that's the most likely thing. Not at all. I do think that is a viable way to play this in large field tournaments instead of the more popular run back options like a 10 or 11% owned Zay Jones or a 6 or 7% Marvin Jones. We got Evan Ingram, who also is banged up. I realize he's 3.3K if you want a run back option, if you're stacking up Chiefs, but is it Ben Rossa who loves Evan Ingram? But I can't do it with this guy. I think there's like a 7 target absolute ceiling, even if he plays.
Yeah, Ben loves him. He does. What about stacking Jacksonville with the Kelce run back?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that it's viable when you're looking at the highest total game on the slate. But what are the odds that, I don't know. So you're kind of asking yourself when you ask that question, what are the odds that the Chiefs go off and only Kelce gets there? It's actually pretty high. It might even be a little bit higher with Kadarius Toney in the fold. I still think
literally happened like 2-3 weeks ago with the 4 touchdown game.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And if you want to just skinny stack this game and just go ATN, Kelce, I don't know, 7,800, 7,100 for their services in the highest total game. You can't get a ton of players. You might not be able to fit in Mahomes, but I still think that's a lot of expected points from this high total game in 2 players that you can stack up.
I have no problem playing this game that way either. Like if you avoid the full game stack, but you just, secondary stack it, I have no problem with just 1 and 1. Kelce, ETN makes sense. I don't know how much like Kelce Kirk or Kelce Jones I want without a stack. That's the problem for me. Like, not necessarily sure where the ceiling on these pass catchers for Jacksonville is. So I probably would want that to be part of a game stack. I'd rather go to ETN in non-game stack situations, but that's just me.
Yeah, if you just looked at 5,900 Christian Kirk in a vacuum and you didn't know the game environment, you didn't know who they were playing, if you looked at the ownership, you'd be like, this 13% expectation is ridiculous. It's because of that run back that we're seeing that boost. So we just got to remember that.
I do like Hardman if he plays, though. There's not a lot of value on this slate at all. Like if you look down, there's not. We can talk about Van Jefferson and a couple of these other cheap options. And I won't even reference tight end right now because tight end is one of those odd positions where you're getting value, sure, but you're just throwing darts and hoping the rest of the position fails worse. At wide receiver, there's not a ton. So Hardman, 4,500, I would imagine as 9.5-point favorites. And what'd you say, 30-point implied total?
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that in the event that he is healthy and good to go, I will have plenty of Mecole Hardman. 5% projected ownership right now at 4,500. Been very involved lately. Who knows how much Kadarius Toney gets worked in, but I don't think Mecole Hardman's going anywhere in this offense.
I totally agree. And we should also mention Hardman's playing better than we've ever seen him play. Juju's playing better than we've seen him play in years. Kelsey's playing at the same high level we've always seen him play at. And oh, by the way, Patrick Mahomes is back to basically making magic back in the backfield there. He's at 3.2 fantasy points over expected over the last 6 weeks. That's number one in the NFL in terms of efficiency over expectation. He's third in expected points. This offense has so much value all over the place, and that's why they could bring at least one Jag along with them.
Yeah, he's on pace for, my God. He's on pace for 5,500 passing yards.
I know the numbers are inflated because they have one more game, but
it would be 52-10.
Yeah,
if it was
exactly. There you go.
It would be 52-10 and 42 touchdowns. Yeah, pretty good.
Pretty decent. Yeah,
not bad. You know what else? I got to tell you, Neil and I talked about this yesterday on the ownership strategy show. Of course, we do these every day of the week, outside of Monday, so 6 days a week. And Ben and I talked about it on Tuesday's First Look show. Cleveland and Miami, very interesting spot. Miami stack obviously is always going to look good against this Joe Woods defense. I think you could be getting Denzel Ward back. Not even sure how much it matters at this point, but just throwing it out there. The other side of this one is still intriguing because while it's not a team that you feel particularly good about stacking, they don't have positive leverage in our top stack tool. Miami has been, one of the best pass funnel defense. No, probably the best pass funnel defense, because even with Detroit, their run defense is so bad that you can beat them up unless you're the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers. You can punish them any way you're looking to. This is one of those teams where you really have to throw it. And I'm not telling you, Justin Fields is not the same as like an offense that doesn't have an insanely good rushing quarterback. I wouldn't be surprised if Brissett has to throw the most he has all season. And Amari Cooper is someone that really intrigues me. Only issue, looks like David Njoku probably doesn't play in this one, which knocks this stack down, in my opinion, a decent amount from where it was, because now you're just talking Amari and DPJ, where before you would have had Amari, DPJ, you would have had David Njoku, unless you like Harrison Bryant. But let's start with the Cleveland Browns. I
can't say I love Harrison Bryant or anything, but I do think that I understand what you're saying here. In expected fantasy points, I mean, Amari Cooper is 8th among wide receivers on the slate in terms of opportunity value. So I totally get why the ownership's a little inflated here. This Miami defense added talent at the trade deadline for sure. Looks like it could be improving, but it's not one that we're scared of. And again, we know where the production is coming from for Cleveland for the most part. And while Njoku being back possibly muddies that a little bit, let's be real. DPJ, even Njoku, Harrison Bryant, these are all large field tournament options with low probabilities of success. I'm fine with 4,300 for DPJ, and I'm even fine with 4,100 for Njoku, which is the 5th highest salary tight end on the slate, if you think that this game shoots out because of the Miami offense on the other side. We're burying the lead entirely. Nick Chubb could just ruin all of these galaxy brain thoughts because he scores 3 touchdowns against a defense that is 18th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the running back position. So below average. Nick Chubb constantly dominating from a fantasy points above expectation standpoint, scoring nearly 5 fantasy points above PFF's expectation model per game this year. Absolutely outrageous. Brissett could throw a lot, but this could be Chubb even if it is a pass heavy game script, because the Browns hate doing that regardless of how much they're up or down.
I agree with that last point. I don't think it's galaxy brain though at all.
No, that was a hyperbolic statement by me.
I'm just saying, like,
yeah,
Dolphins, this secondary is they're filth. Like, they're really bad.
Correct.
Donovan Peoples-Jones, he's getting almost 10% ownership at 4,300. It's a bad value position. Harrison Bryant's 2,700. Look, I'm not dying on the hill of like, oh yeah, Cleveland, but I think all of them, of course, Nick Chubb as well. Yes, no doubt about it. But the differentiator for me is Nick Chubb is around the same price as Barkley, who's got a home matchup against Houston, Derrick Henry, who is a slight favorite against the Denver Broncos team, whose run defense has struggled lately, and he might see 30 touches, Dalvin Cook against Buffalo, whatever. But like, there are other high-priced running back options that make for easy pivots if you don't want to get to Chubb. Find me some really good, in good spots, wide receivers and cheap tight ends this week that are in as good a spot as Miami or Cleveland.
Yeah, Cooper against Miami, absolutely. And you nailed it right there. Listing all those backs right there, we have to positionally contextualize why these ownership expectations are what they are. But should Nick Chubb really be rostered less than Amari Cooper? That's another way to look at this. There are going to be more rosters with Amari Cooper than Nick Chubb in most of these tournaments this coming weekend. And ultimately, they would rather have Nick Chubb dominate than Amari Cooper. I'm not saying it's a bad matchup at all for Amari. They are 25th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position. I think it's great, but I just think the salary at 6,500, he does not have a projection ahead of salary-based expectations. So I do think it's a little bit of us burying the fact that they want to use Nick Chubb as much as humanly possible.
Sean said, never Amari Cooper on the road. Listen, Sean, while I disagree, his home road splits are stupid this season. There's no doubt about that. I mean, it's just crazy. 23 fantasy points at home, 5.7 on the road. But, I mean, you're talking 3 road games. That is funny, though. Man.
Wow, God. I don't usually pay attention to home road splits, but that is substantial.
Yeah. And I don't think it's just this year, but Amari Cooper is priced pretty nicely in a good spot. So what do you make of Miami? Not are they good plays, because they are, but just to throw this out there, if you're stacking, say, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle with Tua without touching the rest of your lineup on DraftKings, that leaves you with 6 spots left and 4,400 per player.
It's not easy to get here because they made the salary so high, but dude, this is awesome. Seeing this Miami offense operate the way it is right now, Tyreek Hill torching people, Jalen Waddle having an incredible sophomore season, Tua Tagovailoa looking like the player we thought he was going to look like early in his college career, pre-injury. They're balling right now. The efficiency numbers, I tweeted out at Draftaholic earlier this week that if you look at weeks 2 and on, no one in the NFL is more efficient than Tua Tagovailoa in terms of expected points added. Mahomes is right there with him, as you would expect. From a fantasy standpoint, projections right in line with salary-based expectations for all 3 players. If you can get there, I really don't think this is a bad idea. Cleveland is league average against the quarterback position in fantasy scoring. They're a little bit better against the wide receiver position than I thought. It doesn't scare me. This team has, week in and week out, has had great offensive schemes. They're one of the most trustworthy offenses from a fantasy perspective we have in the league.
If you can find ways to do it and feel good about it, this is it, man. I look, I'm really wondering how popular is the Tua Hill Waddle lineup, right? With name a cheap defense, and then $2,700 Harrison Bryant at tight end going to be?
That is going to be a build that people start with pretty often. I do think there are ways to flip this build, right? There are some players that have looked good. Jeff Wilson looked really good on his touches last week. Not saying he's going to get a huge amount of workload, but this team, again, game environment, if all these players are going to Hill and Waddle, why not the running game on a team that may end up getting to the 1 yard line and pounding it in with one of those backs?
It's just so tough because Wilson's 55. Like, I don't know. It's so difficult for me to, I see what you're saying, getting leverage off of a very popular stack. I'm just thinking, is it worth saving that to forego like a Pierce at 63, or I don't know if Ezekiel Elliott plays either. Pollard's 65. There's a bit of a gap there, but
yeah,
it feels like a straight timeshare now. It's only 1 week, but doesn't it kind of feel like we've got a timeshare shaping up now that Wilson's in town?
For sure. I think you've got probably, I'm looking at it, 15 to 18 expected fantasy points among the top 2 running back positions each week for the Miami Dolphins. And it might split 55-45 to one player. However, I've seen both runners look very efficient in this offense, whether that's scheme or the defenses they've played recently. You can make that argument, but Cleveland in adjusted fantasy points allowed this season, they're 24th in the league. So they're not exactly a juggernaut. I do think that Miami's rushing is better than people realize because that passing game has become the talk of the town, if you will.
Okay. Let's talk about Detroit and Chicago. Here's a fun one. You can get Chicago in some spots. It's probably gone now. Was only 2.5 points. That feels like a great spot, laying 2.5 on Chicago. I still like Chicago at minus. Yeah, DraftKings still has them at minus 2.5. Couple sites do a little juice on that, but
little teaser for the odd shop tomorrow.
Yeah, man. We talked about this last week, but the running more. I've said it. I'm exhausted myself, but some people only watch one show a week. A lot more design runs, a lot more options, a lot more option play. They're actually making it so Justin Fields can not just be competent, but excel in this offense. It's not an offense that you can probably, it's not, I know for a fact, it's not an offense you can run forever. Okay. Like you're going to need to develop it more. You won't win championships with this type of offense. We've seen that time in and time out. Like you have to develop better as a pocket passer, or your time in this league won't be short, but it'll just be stagnant at one
flash
point.
In the pan. Colin Kaepernick, just a perfect example of this.
Yeah, right. Like what if you can't develop in the pocket over time? It's just the way it is. Like even Hurts developed a lot in the pocket, and now look at him. Lamar Jackson. Remember his first season when he came in halfway through the season with Joe Flacco getting hurt or benched.
That's a great example too, where he just like had to dash
all he did
at a certain point.
Yeah. And Josh Allen did a whole lot of that because he stunk at throwing early on. So then you see what happens when you can run and develop as a passer. Oof. And Fields just looked better in the pocket. He still has to improve, of course, but he's looked a whole lot better. The problem I have with stacking this game is it's Amon-Ra St. Brown or bust on Detroit. Swift played 10 snaps last week. 10 snaps last week. Dan Campbell said he wants to get him a little bit more involved. What does that mean? 15 snaps?
Yeah.
Jamal Williams had 24 carries. Josh Reynolds might not play. DJ Shark is on the IR. TJ Hawkinson's in Minnesota. I'm not trying to figure out which one of the Zylstra brothers or whatever is going to be in my lineup this week. So it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. They don't have high ceiling players. They have two really high ceiling players on this team. One of them is St. Brown, who's been quiet lately. And the other one is probably only going to play 15 to 20% of snaps.
Yep. This is a pretty obvious situation. And Lough, you forgot about Craig Reynolds. They put Craig Reynolds on IR.
Yes.
This changes everything.
Yeah, that's bad.
So ultimately, guys, what are you doing with Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of the biggest questions I have on the slate, because the Chicago defense saw him get carved up by Miami last week. Ultimately, they are not a great defense, but they have been okay against most teams' wide receiver ones, barring last week. I still think the amount of expected fantasy points going to Amon-Ra St. Brown is on the way up. Jamal Williams, I get it that he's not that popular, but we have a projection ahead of salary-based expectations. I think he has a solid ceiling here. And Detroit is not going to be in game environments where they legitimately have a chance to be competitive for all 4 quarters here. And I do think Jamal Williams in a neutral game script or even a positive game script, which Detroit doesn't find themselves in many of, could be dominating from a fantasy perspective.
Do you have any priorities for Detroit?
I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is still my favorite here. But I don't think Jamal Williams is far behind here. Everybody else, Khalif Raymond, Josh Reynolds, really, really deep tournament options. But I should say that Reynolds does have a projection right in line with salary-based expectations.
Add it to the counter, baby. Are we at 5 already?
I think we're at a healthy 5 in 3 games.
Okay.
We also front stack a little bit there. We got to get people, the fuel they need to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think we eclipse 15 here for sure. Like, without question.
Can someone set live odds in the chat, please?
They should. Yeah, we should have live odds for how many times Matt says salary-based expectations. Tyler's got it up on the counter, up top, right on the top of the screen. Fields, okay, that ownership came up as expected from where it was with our first run. Mooney's still only 9%, Cole Kmet 6%. This is the game where if we're talking, because you and I see things a little bit differently early on with like Miami, Kansas City running backs, totally get where you're going with that. For me, if I were to do it, it would probably be with David Montgomery. If I wanted to get leverage against a terrible team, both in the passing game and in the run game, Montgomery, while Khalil Herbert gets some opportunities, Montgomery is still the clear lead back there. That's an interesting spot to me for sure.
Okay. That makes sense to me. This is another one. Look, David Montgomery, I'm going to add it to the counter, has a projection ahead of salary-based expectation to the point where, just like Fields in the same way, he is a solid leverage play. We're seeing 13% of the field or more getting to Justin Fields most likely this week. I got to say, I get it, because not only are the designed runs up, as you mentioned, and I think I said this in a previous matchup show, it's giving Justin Fields the green light to take off has entered a new level, and you can actually see that in average scrambles per game. So if you just take away the designed rushes, no one has more per game scrambles than Justin Fields. The only one who's close right now, Daniel Jones, Sam Ellinger, and then Josh Allen. So Justin Fields, elite fantasy upside for that reason. And then when you scramble for a few extra chunk plays, you get to the red zone a few extra times, and then suddenly you're in a position to pass for 3 touchdowns. You're not going to have a game like he had last week pretty much ever again. He literally had the most rushing yards by a quarterback in history, but shows up in the optimal lineup a solid amount. I do think, look, I think the tournament players are going to say this is a full fade for Justin Fields just because so much of the field is on it. But I do think he has some ceiling upside against one of the worst, if not the worst, defense in the league.
Yeah, I'm honestly not too worried about his ownership here. I think it's a great play. It might be a bad way of looking at this, but he can use his legs. At this stage of the game, Fields has a pretty high floor. He also has a pretty high ceiling. Detroit's defense is bad. I'll tell you that the reason I look at Montgomery and Jeremy, no, I wouldn't stack Fields with Montgomery to cover all rushing, because you're just cannibalizing each other there. The hope would be that Montgomery gets a ton of rushing opportunities and they play with a lead, and Fields doesn't need to scramble, like Matt was just saying how often he's been scrambling. I think if this goes the way if this goes the way in favor of Montgomery, the Bears could get up early. Hopefully it could be because of Montgomery, and then they just run the ball. They still at their core don't want to throw the football a ton. So with that in mind, there's a lot of different ways this could break, but I think, yeah, you could have have Montgomery be somebody who gets 20 carries in a spot like this. What do we have, Matt? 8% ownership? That's not all that bad.
Still think Khalil Herbert's the better rusher.
Like, not DFS, but the better rusher?
Yeah, like if I was choosing a team, yeah. Not for DFS purposes.
I like him too. Yeah, I like him too. I don't know how he'd hold up with like an 18, 20 touch per game role, but I like him for sure. Cole Kmet, if Kmet really, the funny thing with Kmet is if he's only 6% owned, I don't have a problem with it. That's the thing about this team. None of them are that popular right now at all. But again, the issue with Kmet is if this is a lopsided game, I know it's only a 2.5, 3-point spread. So depending on which way you see this, then you can make decisions for yourself. If it's a low scoring game, or if it's a game where Chicago controls this pretty easily, Kmet's just not going to get a lot of opportunities. Like, this team needs to play from behind in order to get those opportunities. Even playing from behind against Dallas, he only had 2 targets.
Yeah, we're talking about, if you look at air yard percentage and target share percentage, or target share is percentage, I don't have to be redundant there. Darnell Mooney has double the opportunity value in this offense compared to Cole Kmet. And Darnell Mooney's opportunity value isn't that high. So I'm just trying to put that in context for you guys. The expected fantasy points per game within this offense for a player like Kmet, it's 5 to 6 points. You're hunting for touchdowns. He's 3.4K. I certainly won't say you can't play him, but there's nothing in the tools saying you must play him other than the fact that Detroit's defense, we know, is real bad.
Agreed. And please understand that Detroit's defense did not get better last week. Aaron Rodgers and company continue to get worse. Seriously, they had 2 goal line opportunities that Aaron Rodgers inexplicably threw into the defender's hands. Ben went.
And did you hear what he said on the Pat McAfee show? He basically said that they just didn't take advantage of the Lions and that the Lions didn't really beat them. He basically was pretty arrogant about that when he looked pretty awful every week
on the McAfee show. He's like, mental errors, which, listen, it's true. A lot of them are true. You look at against Washington, Romeo Doubs dropped 2 balls past the first down marker on 4th and 1. You want to talk about not taking advantage of it? Maybe was he being arrogant, or was he saying like he should have said he didn't take advantage of it? I can tell you that much is true, but
I'll watch it back again. I'll reserve my judgment.
I'm not disagreeing with you. No, I'm saying like if he said I didn't take advantage of those opportunities, yeah, he would have been right about that for sure. But
did you hear these rumblings too that there could be a Russell Wilson for Aaron Rodgers swap because they're the only 2 contracts that they could use, that either team could use to get out of each other's?
Really?
Essentially, both teams doing poorly, both teams possibly having disgruntled or maybe gruntled front offices with their quarterback after this, sort of failed experiment. I don't know. There was rumblings in an ESPN article I read yesterday.
That's crazy.
Wouldn't that be nuts?
Could it work?
Oh, I think the numbers can work, I think.
Wow. They should do it then. They should do it. Remember, there was a lot of talk about Rodgers going to Denver ahead of all the Russell Wilson stuff.
Yeah, he likes that coaching staff.
Yeah. I don't know how, but at least not Nathaniel Hackett. Anyway, you want to move on? You got anything else from this one?
I'm not playing Chase Claypool yet, not at all. These tertiary options from Detroit, good luck. We talked about one of the tight ends for Detroit and live before lock, and both of the other tight ends scored last week. So play Brock Wright at your own risk.
Yeah, or just don't.
Yeah.
Minnesota at Buffalo. This game would be north of a touchdown if Allen was expected to play. Ben had made a good point on the other day when I talked to him about this, saying like maybe the books are just hedging here because, set a line where you don't really want to commit to either side with Josh Allen's status in question. But it seems like McDermott's just playing it close to the vest. but it seems unlikely that Josh Allen's going to be on the field this week. And Minnesota being only 3.5-point dogs kind of speaks volumes here too.
Little Stephon Diggs, Case Keenum revenge narrative.
Yeah, a little reunion.
Reunion,
Bring back
right?
some magic.
Hey, I have said this before, maybe last year. It is so valuable for a Super Bowl contender like Buffalo to have a legitimate backup option.
Yep.
Man, having this offense knowing that it won't go into the complete shitter if Josh Allen has to miss time here, which I don't want at all, is nice to know that Diggs can at least stay afloat, that Gabe Davis might be relevant here, that this team in, yes, a tougher division can likely still weather the storm of Josh Allen missing some time.
Hey, Eagles 2017, 2018 season won the Super Bowl with a backup.
Having a league above average backup for at this point in the development of this team is so valuable. I'm not saying if you're like Dallas, you need to have the best backup right now because you need to focus on getting to January and February. That's not where Buffalo is. All things, if most things are healthy, they're going to get there, but they need a quarterback. Ultimately, this game has a total that says that he might not play though, right?
Oh yeah. And you're right. If you just have competence at backup quarterback, you can still be if you're built everywhere else to win, you just don't want them to lose it for you. And when you have, Keenum would be fine. Like, obviously they're not as scary. Allen's moving the line a whole lot. His status moves the line a whole lot, but yeah, exactly. If it's Kyle Trask in there, they're probably dogs in this game.
Yeah, true.
Or, I mean, they wouldn't be dogs, but it would be, less than 3.5, maybe a pick 'em. But yeah, the total in this game is way down. It opened at, I'll tell you where it opened at. So Buffalo, Minnesota total opened at it's 48.5. It's down to 44.5. I've seen it lower than that though, as well. I've seen this total even lower.
Crazy. Man. And let's go, it's roll it back again. It's time for Loughran and Savoca anatomy experts. When I saw that him holding that elbow like a pitcher who we don't see again for 9 months, I was like white in the face. It did not look good the way he was holding.
The slow motion replay of the hit?
I haven't, no.
Yeah, I mean, his arm just folds backwards.
I really hope he's okay. This team is so fun to watch offensively, and obviously from a DFS perspective, they add so much to the ceiling potential of these skill players that, it'd be kind of a bummer if you just get Minnesota playing kind of the way they want. Now, obviously, their offense is a little more innovative than it has been in previous years, but the shootout potential of this game is entirely different. 43.5-point total, sometimes lower. I still like some of these players. I still like Stephon Diggs. Right now, we have a projection ahead of salary-based expectations with Allen, with a slightly limited projection in there. Maybe we're hedging a bit too. But, hey, if he plays, I'm interested, especially because he's another one who takes off quite a bit. He's 4th in the NFL in scrambles per game, and that's what the eye test tells me as well. He's fine taking off, even in positive game scripts where they should absolutely be handing it off to Singletary or Hines or Cook. Allen's just keeping him himself. He's still, if he's on the field, you can definitely play him.
Tyler's out here setting lines and he completely missed the salary-based expectations.
Oh, is someone cooking the books? Someone.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He bet the under for sure.
Oh my word!
You got to add one, man. We're at 7.
Is this whole show under protest now?
It should be.
Yeah,
should.
It's a travesty.
It's appalling. Dude. This game to me is probably the most difficult to try and get my head around because Justin Jefferson's amazing, but look how many really good top tier wide receivers there are this week. You have some good spots. I mean, Adams against Indy, Kupp against Arizona. We can say what we want about how Arizona has locked him down in a lot of spots, which would be true for the most part. Still Cooper Kupp. Matthew Stafford's in concussion protocol, so I don't even know if he's going to play. My guess is he does. Who knows at this point if it makes any difference between him and Johnny Walford? I'm assuming that's who it would be, right?
Yep.
I don't know, but Thielen didn't practice. I'm assuming he's going to be fine, or he was limited. What about Dalvin Cook?
Fine with Dalvin Cook. Again, I feel better about him if Josh Allen doesn't play, because the likelihood of Minnesota being in a neutral or positive game script drastically increases. If you look at our tools right now, he's not going to look good. He honestly looks way too expensive at the moment, and that is probably tampering down his likely expected ownership. He's still Dalvin Cook. He still has 100 yards and a touchdown upside every time he steps onto the field, and he has some touchdown positive regression in his future as well from a rushing standpoint. You saw that beautiful passing touchdown, receiving touchdown last game, but still Madison has been used more at the goal line in drives that Dalvin Cook dominated. That's something that we could see revert in the second half of the season. Just another game for this Minnesota team where they're getting to face a backup quarterback, which means a better game script for them, or at least a possibility here.
Stephon Diggs is really intriguing, though, just because if it is Case Keenum, one, does that tamp down ownership? Two, does Keenum just rely on the guy that he had a rapport with, that they got to the NFC Championship game with and got smoked? I forget who beat them, but they absolutely got annihilated in that game. It was never competitive.
Was it the Eagles?
Of course it was the Eagles.
Oh, I gotta go.
Of course it was the Eagles. Yeah. I was actually out in I was out in California with Ben watching this game.
Oh, wild.
And he won $50K on it on a showdown slate back where you had to play a defensive player.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you had to play a defensive player. And who was it? Patrick, forget it. He was on the Eagles. Their corner or slot corner.
Who had he had multiple picks, right?
Yeah, and a pick six.
Yeah.
And yeah, Ben, so it was just a good day all around.
You guys must have been going wild.
It was fun, man. This was years ago. This was a while, but yeah, that unforgettable performance there. Maybe though, the fact is that he's just, because it's not exactly, and I didn't even think about it. They're facing their former team as well.
Yeah. Like, yeah. I mean, that's how I was saying the revenge game.
Think about the fact that that's kind of crazy.
That would be fun, right?
If it's Keenum and Diggs facing their former team in Buffalo. Let's go get one for Josh.
We've seen similar situations already when a backup quarterback comes in. And again, we got to do a lot of speculating with this game. When you don't know if Josh Allen is going to play, it's worth taking the extra time to play the what if game. But Taylor Heineke is doing this with Terry McLaurin in Washington, where Heineke and McLaurin have a great rapport that goes back several years. The minute Heineke replaces Wentz, McLaurin's production opportunity value drastically increases. Now, how much higher can it really go for Stephon Diggs? That is a reasonable question to ask. But what if nothing else works in the offense? Maybe the total points goes down. Maybe the touchdown expectation per drive goes down. But Diggs just gets his from a volume perspective. That seems reasonable to me.
I'm sold. Yep, I'm sold. Love
Gabe
it.
Davis wasn't exactly a target monster with Allen in there either.
Exactly. And this run game, it's not like Singletary won't get involved, but Nyheim Hines, and maybe he gets a little bit more involved, but it's still Diggs, right? Like it's still Diggs, and Case Keenum loves the boy. So I like it. I'll be honest though, I'm not really interested in much else. Maybe they go on and they slaughter the Vikings. The only issue I have is that these pass catchers are still all priced to be playing with Josh Allen at quarterback. So if you're stacking them and you're double stacking and stuff, you still have to ask if Case Keenum is enough of a downgrade to where a full stack on this team hurts and isn't worth the massive salary. Although Keenum's obviously cheap. Does that mitigate it? He's $5K.
Yeah, I guess so. It makes the stack still viable, but it just makes the game environment so different. I don't know. I don't know how popular how much I'll prioritize that stack in particular, but I will be getting pieces from this game. One thing I do want to mention as well, TJ Hawkinson, we got to keep an eye on this because if he is used as much in this offense as he was to start, he's going to be viable moving forward for sure. Might be a little popular, doesn't look fantastic in the tools right now. He has a projection below salary-based expectation, but I'm almost wondering if 5,300 is going to be reasonable for this player moving forward.
For who? I'm sorry.
For Hawkinson.
Yeah. I was shocked to see that he was on the field for almost every snap last game.
The expected fantasy points look really good. 1 week sample size, I recognize it. They're playing Washington. We should not make a huge takeaway from this, but we got to keep an eye on it. They traded for him. Spent a lot.
Let's keep it going. Some fun games so far.
Absolutely.
And yes, Larry, they definitely had individual player for a showdown. You might not remember it because it was gone before it started. I think it may have just been postseason for NFL, and it might not have even been the entire postseason for that 2018 year. It might have only been a couple weeks. But it did exist. I can assure you of that. It definitely existed. All right.
That seems like a fun postseason experimentation that may have vanished right after that.
It sucks. It's fun to remember it, and that Ben had a massive day with but
right.
That's so tough because you get a pick six from a guy that just, I don't know. There's something real shitty about having to pick in a defensive play. It's
very difficult.
Right. And then when you're talking about just straight luck based, when you get to the IDP, because if he gets a defensive touchdown, it's over for, everybody else. Not to say that everyone is, not to say that people didn't also play Patrick Robinson, but it's a whole lot different than.
I just realized though that happens on like 1 every 5 main slates where there's some like 0.1% owned guy who has 3 touchdowns in the first quarter, and you're just like, well, all right, let's turn the phone off.
For sure.
We're done here.
The difference, though, is people don't enjoy researching defensive players and rostering defensive players. No one's like, oh, this 0.2 owned linebacker is going to crush today. Nah.
There's somebody out there who wishes they could do it, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah, there's maniacs who only do IDP fantasy leagues. It blows my mind. More power to you, but never my thing. Dallas, Green Bay. All right. Finally, Green Bay's not favored. I mean, I know they weren't favored against Buffalo. They were big dogs, but 5.5 in some spots, home dogs against the Dallas Cowboys. And guess what? That's about right. That's probably where it should be. Let's start with the Dallas backfield. I'm not convinced that Zeke plays. I know there's been talk that he's going to, that he'll wear a brace if he does. I'm not convinced that he plays in this game, which would make things really interesting in this backfield for Tony Pollard if Zeke sits.
Yeah, because the Packers are 31st in Football Outsiders rush DVOA and 27th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the running back position. So if Tony Pollard, who we have waxed poetic show after show about, one of the most efficient rushers in the league, but most efficient players with the ball in his hands in the league, would be an awesome play. Once again, we've already had Chalk Tony Pollard go off. It could once again happen here against a Green Bay team that, in my opinion, is imploding. Is that fair to say? Dak and company are solid options in the passing game. You got CD at wide receiver 8 in terms of salary ranking. We got a projection right in line with salary-based expectations. Dak is the one who we see as a little bit too expensive, but if you're going to stack them up, I don't mind it. I think even Noah Brown and Gallup at their prices are okay. If you think that Green Bay is just on the way down here, I don't have any faith in the Packers at the moment. I realize that a get-right game at home could occur against this Cowboys team. We've seen Aaron Rodgers work some late magic against this team in Green Bay before. But the Cowboys pass defense, man, just to flip it over to the other side, they're legit this year. 3rd in Football Outsiders passing DVOA and 3rd in yards allowed per pass attempt. I think they could dominate this game here, as the line implies, and that would make Tony Pollard a hell of a play this weekend.
Absolutely. Listen, your secondary is always going to be better too when you've got an elite pass rush,
mm-hmm.
and that's what's causing problems for opposing team. Tony Pollard, I know McCarthy and Neil brought up a good point yesterday, saying like they didn't really want to use him a ton, even if Zeke is out. I get that, but I'd be interested to see if they're not up by 20 points like they were against Chicago, if they really limit Tony Pollard's workload. You know what I mean? Like, are they really going to limit him if they're trying to get a win at Lambeau Field because, they don't want to wear him down if it's actually a close game? I'm not convinced that that's the case. Like the Quadre Allison is going to be in there. Whoever is going to be behind. Malik Davis.
Yeah. If they're up 3 touchdowns in the final 6 minutes, that's a concern. Who scored all those touchdowns, though? I don't think that's a reasonable reason not to play Tony Pollard if Zeke is out.
I'm with you. All right.
Schultz is another one who we see as a little too expensive salary-wise, but he's $3,800. We're saying he should be like 35 or 36. You don't have to make some earth-shattering moves to fit him into your lineup. And if you wanted to skinny stack like a Pollard and a Schultz in a large field to sort of create a larger game stack here, don't think that's insane.
Davis had 4 carries on the final drive of that, not including the 2 kneel downs. That game against Chicago, 4 carries. Tony Pollard was pulled from that game. So I'm just saying, like, okay, think of it this way. So as you mentioned, the touchdowns. Tony Pollard had 3 touchdowns, a 54-yard touchdown. He had a bunch of touchdowns, right? And some long runs on 14 carries. If they're methodically driving the ball down the field, do you really think that Tony Pollard is only getting 14 carries? So that lack of 20 touch game was the result of insane efficiency and a blowout. That's at least how I'm looking at it.
This reminds me of when Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes were playing so well that it was lowering the red zone quantity for the Chiefs.
Yes,
because they kept scoring from outside of the red zone. How is that a bad thing?
Exactly.
Tony Pollard scoring multiple touchdowns on long runs.
Exactly.
Means he gets less targets because he already scored.
Yep, 100%.
Kind of funny to me.
Before they pulled him, before the game was completely out of reach, he had almost 80% of the running back carries. That's all you need to know.
Boom.
The other side, ugly. Very ugly. Aaron Jones, I guess he says he's going to play. We'll see. X-rays were negative. Practiced in a limited capacity yesterday. Romeo Doubs is done for at least a few weeks. Alan Lazard, I honestly, even at this price, I'm going, I'm good. I'm good on that. I am not excited about the Packers at all. And I'll give you one more caveat to anybody considering this backfield this week. Remember last year, Aaron Jones was active in a lot of games, but apparently not at full strength. And then Dylan was coming in. And then in many of those games, they just cannibalized each other. I don't feel like trying to figure that out this week on a team that can't actually score touchdowns anymore.
I had it in my notes that we should bring that up. Exactly. Aaron Jones, not healthy, has been inefficient. And that was with the MVP of the NFL. Playing quarterback. And I realize it's still Aaron Rodgers back there, but it's not the same Aaron Rodgers we're used to.
Though?
It could be it. Post ayahuasca, Aaron Rodgers maybe got replaced or something. That's the conspiracy we need.
Yeah. Yes. Or they killed him when he got inoculated, but not evacuated. The league may have killed him off.
Oh my God. Like the Prestige or something.
A Rodgers clone, a vaccinated Rodgers clone.
Gosh, this is breaking news.
Yeah, well, I mean, this guy stinks.
Hey, so actually, let's look at this whole team for a minute. Every single player who's we are 100% sure they are going to play has a projection below salary-based expectation. So I think we need a name for that. The only thing that comes to my mind is a Dr. Evil, because how about no is the whole thing I think about Green Bay right now. How about no? I agree. It's not. Lazard is the only one. And that's like,
if you're only 3 maxing or whatever, I don't want any of Green Bay. I know I'll have some Lazard sprinkled in there. I'm sure it's going to happen. Yeah, maybe a little Robert Tonyan, but it's not a team I'm excited about at all. A team I'm really stoked on is the Indianapolis Colts. I'm just kidding. We're going to get into that. Before we do, though,
I was letting it marinate.
Before we do, prizepicks.com. I'm assuming all of you guys who have prize picks in your state have already signed up there for a multitude of reasons. One, you're probably in a non-legal betting state. Two, it's a sick site where you're just building lineups with player props, no juice on either side, over, under, and some real edges there too. If you're paying attention, using our player prop tool, looking at those touchdown props, building 2 through 5, you hit 5, you're 10xing your money. Unlike traditional books and parlays, if you hit 4 or 5, you still 2x. You make money back on 3x. What better way, on 4 or 5 and on 3 or 5, you still make money back. What better way to build and sustain a bankroll and also, have some shots to hit some big 10xers than prize picks right now? It's so nice to see that your entire lineup, it would be called a parlay anywhere else, but your entire lineup isn't busted based on missing 1 and hitting 4 or 5. It's sweet. And you get, and I said a multitude of reasons. The other reason, up to $100 first match deposit bonus. And here's the kicker, free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. All of the tools that we have, not just for football, for every single sport. Ownership projections, top stack tool, boom bust tool, our top plays tool for showdown slates, our new lineup generator, which is sick. All of that entirely free when you sign up at Prize Picks. But as you know, the only way that we can track that is if you use the link or you use the chat, the link in the description or the one in chat that Tyler's about to throw in there right now. They have more sports than you can imagine. They have more different ways to play, like the power play, where if you hit 4 or 4, you 10x. Check it out. I really do think you guys will enjoy Prize Picks. Everybody that does play there, like I know Matt Kajeski, because he can't bet where he is. Eric Lindquist plays Prize Picks all the time in California. Free month, up to $100 first match deposit bonus. Our free tools to give you the information you need over at Stokastic. Man, what are you waiting for? It's a legitimate no-brainer. So check it out. PrizePicks.com, sponsor of the Strategy Show. The Colts. I'm going to turn the floor over to you because I ran it about Jeff Saturday and Parks Reese. What did I say his name was? Parks Frazier?
Parks Frazier, which sounds like a Leslie Knope rival.
Yeah.
Everyone know the reference there? We'll see. We'll see in chat.
I don't. Oh. Calling plays, formerly Frank Reich's Frank Reich's like personal assistant. So go ahead, man. Floor is yours. It's about to be fun in Indy.
I think it is going to be wild for sure. But I was saying a little bit before the show, Laffy, that I actually want Jeff Saturday to succeed. Do I think this is a rational hire? I do not. I do not think this is a rational hire. I do think that the parity is so high in the NFL that Jeff Saturday leading Sam Ehlinger with Parks Frazier calling the plays has a chance to succeed against a Las Vegas team that hasn't exactly looked like a juggernaut this season. And wouldn't it be the most hilarious timeline if Saturday and Ehlinger did succeed? Because the hirings would be hilarious over the next 24 months in the NFL. I mean, as someone who loves to dig into the data, spends a lot of time in spreadsheets, I think analytics might go back to the Stone Age, but I still am here for it because I think that would be so hilarious to see what teams end up trying to do, maybe hiring players right after retirement, locker room leaders suddenly becoming coaches. The whole situation is kind of hilarious to me. But ultimately, this team is missing Jonathan Taylor, healthy at least. Maybe doesn't have Deion Jackson, doesn't have a reasonable quarterback. It's not even league average, not even close to league average. I don't know if you can trust Pittman, Pierce, or Campbell at this point. It's a mess. It's an actual mess of a team. The only thing we like is that Las Vegas's defense at times has looked totally incompetent to the point where if Carr and Adams hook up for another similar day like they had last week, then even this incompetent Jeff Saturday-led team, well, maybe not incompetent, Jeff Saturday-led team will be forced into a pass-heavy game script where maybe somebody has a fantasy-relevant day.
I'm not actually sure Irsay doing what he did is as dumb as it seems on the surface. They're pretty much conceding that they're no good this year. It's midway through the season. I know that there are some people in Indy that are saying, they had opportunities to throw guys in at interim coach that are kind of in the pipeline that are on the coaching. I get all that, but I mean, fuck it, right?
That's what Jim Irsay said.
Yeah, it's week 10. What you're horrible right now. You have the highest paid offensive line in the league. That is to say they've underperformed would be a gross misrepresentation of what we've seen on the field from them this year. Screw it. I think it's great for the game, personally. I love it. It's midway through. You're in week 10. You're week 10. Who cares? Let's see what happens. Let me ask you this. Do you think Roger Goodell likes this? I bet he loves it.
I haven't even thought about it.
How many people are going to tune into that game that never would have had any interest in watching a Colts Raiders game on a week 10 on a Sunday?
Okay, that's fair. The publicity will increase for a team that is starting Sam Ehlinger at quarterback and likely to lose. And you got to look at it another way. I don't think it's a necessarily nefarious way of doing this, but you got 2 quarterbacks expected to go in the top 5 right now in the 2023 draft. That team has been aching for any sort of consistency at the quarterback position since Andrew Luck left them high and dry, and ultimately CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, maybe some other options play their way into some top 5 consideration. The Colts clearly thinking long-term, not short-term. And interim head coach for 6 weeks in Jeff Saturday, maybe get him into the coaching pipeline from this point forward. I kind of get it. It would be wild if it worked. I don't think it's going to.
Oh, I'm not saying it's going to work. Yeah. I'm saying they probably don't want it to work. And then if it does work, he's a genius. It's kind of a win-win. If it doesn't work, you've got a great draft. You got a great upcoming quarterback class. Ever since Andrew Luck retired, they've been scrambling to find somebody. First, it was Brissett just as a holdover. Then it was Phillip Rivers. Then it was Carson Wentz. Then it was Matt Ryan. Then it was Sam Ehlinger. That's crazy. Listen.
6 straight years.
Yeah.
Of a new quarterback.
Overall, this is not one of these, as they say, poverty franchises or laughing stock organizations. If you know that you have to strip down a little bit here to or not even strip down, that what the hell are you going to do next year at quarterback? It's not working to go out and get a veteran like Russell Wilson for Denver. Aaron Rodgers certainly isn't going to have the same appeal, if any, that some team will take a shot on him, but let's just say whatever, I get it.
Well, Jim Irsay knows as well as any owner in any professional sport, I would say, that one player changes the margin for error as an owner and a GM and a coach entirely. And you can say he, quote unquote, lucked into Manning and Luck, but having quarterbacks like that, you can do a lot of things mediocre or wrong and still have them cover up a lot of mistakes and end up being a competitor. This could happen for this team once again in 2023. Let's not pretend here. In this game, the only thing I like about this team is the Las Vegas defense being bad. I'm happy to say that Las Vegas has some upside here because Jacobs gets a ton of work. Derek Carr and Adams show that they are back on track. And if it goes the way we expect in Indy, where they're just kind of incompetent because they have a brand new coach coaching in the NFL, they could dominate here.
They can. It's so funny after last week. I'm looking at the first half of that game going, okay, Derek Carr, 220 some passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Devontae Adams, absurd performance in the first half. Looked like he was going on to a 300-yard game. And then the second half, complete implosion. The wheels fall off. Derek Carr throws for 36 yards or whatever it was in the half.
Yeah.
They cough up. Was it a 3-score lead? 3-score lead and lose that game. I have no idea what to make of this team. If they can't figure something out and get right here, it's going to be ugly. But yeah, I still like Devontae Adams. I still like Josh Jacobs. You want to take some shots on a cheap Hunter Renfrow. I get that. Waller's still limited practice. I don't know if he's going to play. If he does, I don't even know if it's viable. Last thing I want to ask you, we can make this quick. If I had to set a line, 1.5 on trickery for the Colts, how many trick plays do you think they run?
Easy over for me.
Okay, I think so too. You know who else is doing that a lot this year, and it's working like a charm? Pete Carroll and the Seahawks.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, look, the game plan that they are running, executing in Seattle, it's excellent, especially considering the personnel. I don't think I've ever heard ex-teammates talk about another player like the Seahawks talk about Russell Wilson, like sub-talk about Russell Wilson.
Right. We assume it's got to be.
Yeah.
They ran one play earlier this year. It was sweet. I think it was against Arizona. Well, it's not to say it's never been done before, but snap the ball in shotgun formation. Geno jumps up and looks backwards, pretending like the ball soared over his head on a bad snap, but it actually went to the running back lined up next to him, and he took it for like a 20-yard gain. That stuff is fun to watch.
Love it.
Yeah, it very fun stuff. Maybe they'll do something like that. Who knows? They have to try something. And this Parks Frazier dude, like, you're calling plays out of nowhere. You're going to have to do some fun stuff. Who knows if it works, though?
Yeah.
All right, Arizona and the Rams. Kyler Murray didn't practice. Well, I think it was an estimated practice, so he wouldn't have practiced with a hamstring. And then Matthew Stafford, we find out yesterday from Sean McVay that he's in the concussion protocol. So this one's odd. Arizona was a 3-point dog. It's down to 1.5. Neither team has been even remotely convincing this season that they can definitively win football games. The Rams' run game is inferior as it gets, along with their offensive line. This is so ugly.
Kupp, Hopkins, and literally maybe nothing else.
Van Jefferson.
Okay, I buy Van Jefferson. Even the Cardinals' pass D is getting better. They looked like one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL early on. They're 20th now in Football Outsiders pass DVOA and 15th in yards allowed per pass attempt. That's what my eye is telling me as well, that they're maybe slightly below average as a pass defense. So if you want to go away from the absolute target hog of the NFL and Cooper Kupp and say Van Jefferson is a fine flyer option, that's fine. You're still targeting a tertiary option on a team with only 21.5 or even lower some places implied points. It's just not the same offense. And if Kyler is out on the other side too, don't pretend that doesn't affect the Rams. They may play even more conservatively. This game may even go below the 41-point total it has. I don't know if I have the guts to play anything outside of the superstars, Kupp and Hopkins.
We're in agreement. I don't know if the Rams can play conservatively with that run game, but they might try. Yeah. They might try. John said Van Jefferson's going to make or break my week. John, don't do that. I see you in chat. I know you're a smart guy. Don't do it. Like, I will have some Van Jefferson, but he can't be the guy that defines your week on a bad team right now. The reason I mention him is kind of simple. No, it's very simple. There's no value down there. Like, go find some other, especially if Landry's back. You probably don't even have Marquez Callaway at 3,600. There's just no, if you have expensive stacks and you're trying to find a cheap receiver, there's nothing down there. Like, Jefferson had 5 targets last week. Of course, he dropped a long one, and he had 0 receptions. But you're going, all right, fine. Like, maybe he has a long touchdown or something. But there's nothing down there below 4K. That's the only reason I mentioned. I'm not excited about it.
It's definitely not an exciting week for sub 4K wide receivers, but I still think it's important, especially if you're considering multiple lineups. Say you're getting to like 20 plus lineups in a main slate. You want to still have your percentage of these low salary wide receivers still somewhat in line with their actual percentage chances of success, of going off. And so you could say that at 3,500, Van Jefferson, I think you could make a reasonable argument that he has a 10% chance of going off, getting that 3x score you need. That's 3x the field. That's still just 10% of your lineups. That's sort of the context we need to put this in. So we're still making a huge stand, but he still is only in one of 10 of your lineups in this, scenario, this hypothetical.
Yep. Because there's a 90% chance he doesn't go off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So isn't it weird this year to look at how much parity there's been and how strange the year has been, where 1 week Cincinnati is completely one-dimensional? Just an example. They get embarrassed by Cleveland on Thursday Night Football, but that was bookended by 2 weeks where they just went insane. One of them without Jamar Chase. The Chiefs come in and they look dominant. The Colts look awful, and then the Colts come in and beat them in Kansas City. I could go through a laundry list of scenarios where week to week you see these odd blips on the radar, and a team kind of breaks out, or a team stays, or a team just goes from looking great to looking terrible. That's not the weird part. The weird part is all season long, and I think people are finally starting to say, okay, maybe it's just not happening. All season long, you've been waiting for the Rams offensive breakout. You've been waiting for the Packers offensive breakout. You've been waiting for the Bucs offensive breakout. I think after a few weeks, we knew about Denver, but there've been, right? I think that's fair to say, right? All these teams, Arizona too, that big game against New Orleans was mostly defensive power. All these teams, you're waiting for it. You're waiting for it. Everything else is going on around them. All these other horrible teams are having a blow up game here and there. These teams can't do it. And it's week 10 and they still haven't done it. I say all of that as a long-winded way of asking, when do we look at this and go, it's not happening?
For the Rams?
Yeah, for the Rams.
Done. I'm done.
Okay, I figured that's what you were alluding to, but you're just going to keep seeing people going, hey, it has to be figured out. I'm not sure it does at this point.
So I can get all into the data science aspect of it, the data nerd aspect of it, but really, for every position other than quarterback, you should be looking at 6 to 8 weeks of a sample size. That's how they're playing right now. And yes, there are players who get back into superstar form 16, 18, 20 games after they were last in superstar form. But ultimately, outside the quarterback position, where you could make an argument to look at a player's last 500 or so snaps, what a team does over a 6-game span is who they are. And maybe they figure it out and get a little bit better. But this team, who they are right now, is a 20 to 23 point offense with a defense that can stop the run but can't stop the pass. And that doesn't work in the modern NFL. Could they squeeze into a playoff spot by turning it around in the second half? I'm not saying they can't right now, but I'm not calling them an elite team anymore. It's just not happening.
Yeah. And Higbee is just falling off the face of the earth.
One target?
Come
on.
Makes no sense at all. Maybe he bounces back, but again, does he have a touchdown this year?
I can't remember one off the top of my head. And
I don't think
even when he was getting huge volume in the beginning of the year, he was playing badly. Like everyone remembers that game, week 1 against the Bills, where they're trying to come back and he had multiple passes doink off his helmet.
Yeah.
He's had multiple double-digit target games after that. It's really gone down since week 5, though. He had a 10-target game in week 5. He has not had 10 total targets since.
And he hasn't scored a touchdown on the season.
Not great, Bob.
What's that?
Not great, Bob. You know that phrase? I forget where that's from.
Dogs barking. I just know it as the GIF or the meme. What's it from?
I think it's Mad Men.
You know what? My mom always told me you got to watch Mad Men, and I never watched that show. She loved it. I should watch it.
I haven't watched the whole thing. It's slow. First 2 seasons are slow, but then everyone loves the golden years, the groove of the show. Apparently, it gets very good.
Okay. Yellowstone's coming back too. Pretty stoked about that.
That's your favorite, right?
No, not my. I mean, what, like all time?
Yeah. What's your favorite all time
Show? Oh, easy. The Wire.
That's probably the right answer. Breaking Bad is my answer.
I've seen it many times. And my favorite single season of television is True Detective season 1 with Woody and Matt McConaughey.
Strong.
I can answer them quickly. I can answer those. What about you?
Breaking Bad's my favorite show.
Okay. Great show. Fantastic finale. That's important. You have to have, if you have a bad finale like Dexter, it can fuck everything up.
I would go as far to say that Breaking Bad season 5 is the best season of television because they broke it up in the middle. They had to stick that landing so well because the anticipation, they literally added a year of anticipation to the final 8 episodes of that show, and it delivered in spades.
It was a great show.
It's a great show. I love The Wire too, man. So
yeah, good. The Wire, Game of Thrones. Like there's The Sopranos is phenomenal. There's a lot out there. Bloodline, if you guys never watched that, the first couple seasons of that were sick.
Okay, all right. We can go back to football in a minute. What's your favorite airing right now, though?
House of the Dragon's phenomenal.
I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, it's very, very good. It's very good. I would say that's probably right now. I haven't been able to watch a ton of TV recently. It's very unfortunate. I would like to get back into getting into some shows. The one on Apple TV was pretty good too. What's it called? The
Severance was going to be my answer. Severance might be the strongest season 1 on TV right now for sure.
I think it was slightly overhyped. Like I thought it was good, but slightly overhyped, but I liked it. Yeah. All right. Yeah. What's chat's favorite show ever? Like The Wire, if someone says you're wrong, they could be like, that's not mine. And I say, okay. But if they say you're wrong for saying you're wrong.
Everything about that show is thoughtful, well done. Acting is insanely good. The writing's, you could go on. You could write novels about how good that show was. The only thing that you have to say is it makes you feel like absolute shit about the people, and the hardships that they go through.
Yeah, it's tough to watch. The worst part, I won't actually, I spoil whatever the hell I want at this point. The show's been over for a million years. Where what's his name becomes the heroin addict. Was it Dookie?
Bubbles?
No, Bubbles was a heroin addict.
Oh yeah.
The poor kid that with the horrible family life and everything. And,
oh yeah, when he sinks, yeah.
And then anyway, great show. Check it out. If you haven't seen The Wire yet, sit down and binge it. Oh God, I envy anybody who hasn't seen those good shows and gets to go and just watch them all at once.
Truly.
Houston and New York. I don't envy anyone that's going to be at this game, but I'm playing this one very simply. I love Dameon Pierce. I love Saquon Barkley. I know some people, Ben being one of them, maybe you talked about Daniel Jones. I think you might see 60 plus combined rush attempts in this game. We already know that Lovie Smith, if he can, wants to get Pierce as many carries as humanly possible. I don't think Brandon Cooks plays. Give me Pierce. Give me Saquon Barkley. That's where I'm at.
Someone had a great quote about Dameon Pierce. They were like, I don't know what happened in this guy's past, but I don't know why he's so mad. He might be the angriest runner in the NFL.
It's great, isn't it?
It's a good
They would have got shit on by Philly if he didn't play. Like if he wasn't breaking all the Philly does that nonsense though, where they try and strip every ball, and it's great when it works, and when it doesn't, they pick up 15 extra yards. But anyway, go ahead. Thoughts on this game?
Pierce is a great play. He's not too expensive at 6,300. We have a projection way ahead of salary-based expectation, and especially if Brandon Cooks doesn't play, there's almost nothing else to talk about with the Houston Texans outside of something like a Millie Maker, where you might go to like a Nico Collins or a Chris Moore if you dare. On the other side, Saquon Barkley has been the guy and the only guy for the Giants basically all season long. It just happens to be working a whole lot better for the Giants than for the Texans this season. He's RB1 in salary ranking. He's RB2 in our projections right now. So you're you're saying it's pretty much okay at 8,600. You're going to need a huge game, 25 to 30 points to feel really good about him. But Houston's defense, not good. 29th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the running back position. He's probably, I like Barkley just straight up better than Pierce in this game, but I get why Pierce is going to be more popular because of that salary discount.
Me too. I do like him. Brandon, yeah, Black Mirror was sick, man.
I loved Black Mirror. There's so many good. I want to just talk about TV now. There's so many good answers in chat. We got a good crew here. If I didn't know this before, I certainly know it now.
It's the Marathon Matchups crew. What else could you possibly expect? You know,
only the best.
But yes, the Black Mirror was sick. It hits too close to home now, though. It's all
some of it, man.
Too real. You know, it all feels too real. The VR one, remember where they're going and they're cheating on his wife and stuff in there with the other guy, but the guy's playing as a girl. Remember that one?
Oh yes.
So Ben sends me a DM the other day because you know he's a wild man, and it was so the guy who created the Oculus headset just made one that actually kills you in real life if you die in the game.
Yeah, I did read this article. It apparently it triggers something that kills your brain.
It explodes your head, basically.
It flashes a certain red. So, you know, lag is gonna literally kill someone eventually, apparently. Because gosh.
Would you play that game to save your fiance?
Oh my gosh, what are the circumstances that got us here? Please have some like Michael Bay 2 hours to lead up to this moment, because then this would be pretty epic. I would.
Okay, I was waiting so badly for you to just not answer that question. It'd be scary though. It'd be interesting.
yeah. Life or death situation would be, it'd be pretty scary.
It'd be interesting. I'm clearly joking, Matt. Could that be used? Could that be and guys, don't worry, we'll be out of here in a minute. These last two games, not great.
They're saying you went full Saw with that question. You did go full Jigsaw with that.
People know I get dark on these shows, but it's really not dark. It's just we're having fun. Do you think that could have value in society?
Probably outside of like requested capital punishment or something like that.
That's what I was. Yeah,
I cannot think of anything off the top of my head. Like if that is someone's preferred in a where the courts have decided that that's what's going to happen. If that is like a preferred method and that is considered by that person what they want, maybe. It just seems like put this in the category of someone thought of it and should have never built it.
Can I tell you something though? I never got a VR headset because they scare me. The idea of, in a sense, leaving reality. The Ready Player One, where it's like their life isn't their life anymore. VR is their life, right? Mm-hmm. Everything becomes boring. Everything becomes, there's no more dopamine hits or release of endorphins in real life anymore. Everything becomes menial and meaningless.
Oh, can I make a little prediction here about this? I don't necessarily disagree that we need a word for a like continuous seeping of virtual reality, meaning people exit reality. We don't really have that word yet. Like you're distancing from reality, but I know exactly what you're talking about. I believe that 2023 will be the next 2007 for a certain fruit technology company with the AR VR revolution. 2007 was the first year of the iPhone.
Right.
I believe that they will be starting that 2007 process in the AR VR world in 2023.
I think you could definitely be right, but I don't like it.
So it's going to be super. I know nothing. I used to work at an Apple store in college. That is my extent of this. I think that they're going to do it like the iPhone, where it's going to be pretty crazy expensive, wild, and then over a course of a couple years, find a way to get it into everyone's hands when it's really freaking cool.
You have to agree, though, that the direction society takes once that becomes mainstream cannot be good.
It's going to be
Good.
different. I worry about going good or bad because there is no way I would have heard about the internet and be like, we are gonna burn it down fast. And there's been a lot of positive things that came out of the internet, a lot of good things. So I'm trying to remain optimistic.
But you're still in reality.
But I'm very cautious. Yes.
If VR can provide productive stuff, mate. Last thing I'll say: social media, same thing. You're people. I'm gonna get comments in chat like, "Oh, what a boomer." Social media, fantastic. I use it. Also, destroying the world. Say what you want. Kind of true, but it is what it is. And technology isn't going to slow down. So buckle up. That's why we play DFS, to escape. This is our escape from reality, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sports are the best escapism, in my opinion. And that's why we try to win big money doing it.
Are we going to win big money by playing the New Orleans Saints and the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Probably not, guys. Hey, look, there are some talented players on this team. Kamara is obviously one that is viable. Projection ahead, a salary-based expectation, ownership creeping up to the 15% level. Him and Olave, man, they're really only the ones that we have to worry about on this New Orleans side. The Pittsburgh defense is not strong this year. They are 26th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position. They are 11th, basically right at league average, to the running back position. And with Kamara just 7,400, he's going to be one of my more popular options at the running back position because he's that slight discount from the premier options. And you know that 30-point upside is absolutely there. I do like some run back options here. I don't buy the Najee Harris, Jalen Warren thing, but I'm probably playing neither player in GPP. So give me a little Deontay Johnson or George Pickens. Neither are too expensive. The tools will say right now that Deontay Johnson's the better play.
Let's wrap it up, man. Denver and Tennessee. And last thing I'll say, we talked about prize picks earlier. If that's not available in your state, BetMGM probably is, which means you can bet legally, which means when you use our link to put, or in the description or in chat, and put $10 down, following those directions, put it on any bet you want, you're getting 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. I swear, we're just giving away the farm lately. Take advantage of the best tools in DFS. 2 free months. Click the link. Follow the directions. It's very simple, okay? You can't mess it up. I mean, anybody, you can't. No, you guys personally can't. I know that. I have faith in you. If you've been wanting to get your foot in the door and you're like, it's kind of expensive, because yeah, they're not cheap monthly subscriptions because the tools are so valuable. You want to get your foot in the door. You're getting it for 2 straight months for a minimum of $10. Now, with this, BetMGM is also offering up to $1,000 risk-free bet as well. So if you have the money to spare, don't just put 10 down. Of course, that doesn't affect me at all. I'm just telling you the way to play this because you're getting your risk-free bet and they only do it once. You put 100 down. That means if you make that $100 first bet and you lose, you're getting $100 back in free bets. So you have that plus the first 2 months free and a new book to play on where you can shop different odds and get more advantages. The link is in the description. The link is in chat for those of you guys watching after the fact. Check that out. BetMGM. All right. Denver and Tennessee. Greg Dulcich, Derrick Henry. Good night, everybody. It's been a good show.
Yeah. The collective ownership of the running backs of the Denver Broncos, less than 2% right now.
It should be.
Absolutely gross. And the salaries for Melvin Gordon, he's the running back 21 in terms of salary. He should be the running back 81.
Yep.
Chase Edmonds is there now. Latavius Murray is there. This is a mess. Russell Wilson, he's still expensive. $5,900 is the 8th highest salary quarterback. This is the lowest total game on the slate. Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy are good players, but they're completely stuck in these bad situations. So I get why you're saying Greg Dulcich at just 3.4K on DraftKings is going to be somewhat popular. Now, remember, almost 10% of the field is going to play him. I think it's probably that's the maximum percentage chance that you can say he goes off. 10%, 1 in 10. So I think it's hard to say I'm going to be way over the field there. That's it for the Denver Broncos. And then you said it. Big dog, Derrick Henry, 8,300. Running back 2 in projection. We have him running back 1. So running back 2 in salary, running back 1 in projection. That means that projection is ahead of salary-based expectations. The Broncos have been okay in adjusted fantasy points allowed to running backs. Doesn't stop us from playing Derrick Henry. No Woods, no Westbrook-Akine. That's it. That's it for Tennessee. That's probably it.
That's it. I would love Tannehill to play. I would. But Henry will get a lot of work regardless. If Henry saw 30 carries in this game, I wouldn't be shocked at all. Like, I honestly would not be shocked. I'm not projecting him for 30 carries, obviously, but this is one of those games. The reason I like Tannehill in there more is because Derrick Henry might see 3, 4, 5 targets if Derrick Henry's in this game, or if Tannehill's in this game. If it's Malik Willis, there's nothing there in the passing game. He probably completes between like 7 and 9 passes, and that's it. But yeah, Derrick Henry in a fantastic spot. 10 up, 10 down, baby. You guys survived the marathon matchup show. Matt and I basically getting in and out in an hour and a half. That's impressive work today.
Well, we had the gift of the 10-game slate.
Yeah, so but we spent some time talking about some TV, about VR, about. I think it's pretty good.
Info and tangents. That's what they want. We did pretty well. Appreciate you all hanging out more than you could ever know, guys. Follow me at Draftaholic if you like. And of course, take advantage, man. That BetMGM offer is slick. There's going to be somebody out there who gets 2 free months, hits on their $1,000 risk-free bet, and is just sitting with this giant bankroll and 2 free months of all the Stokastic tools, and now they can use it on a zillion things.
Yep. Check it out, man. It's not going to be here forever. We're actually working right now with them to get it down to 1 month because 2 months is absurd. So we'll see you guys back here for the next one. Follow Matt at Draftaholic, me at Laffy_D. Check out everything. My picks for every game video down there on the Odd Shopper channel, and everything else you need from everywhere. Fantasy football, Odd Shopper, DFS. We got you covered. Follow or shout out to Tyler Zander as well for producing this show. Thanks, guys. Peace.